We have been talking about old traditions or old customs in the pharma marketing. In that series today, we will be talking about another interesting tradition, and it is where we talk about prescription is the key or doctor is the key in the pharma marketing. See, we have to meet the doctors and generate prescription. But when it comes to retailer, yes, we have to inform them about availability, or we have to book their orders so that we can make the product available. Nothing more than that. So the major focus was on the doctors, or you can say doctor prescription. Traditionally, we have to meet the 10 doctors and 5 chemists per day. That was normal routine. Some company it can be maybe 11, 12 doctor, 5 chemists, but very rare you will find that chemist has to more 8 or 10 until and unless it is generic company. So focus used to more and more doctors, and chemist or pharmacist was dealing as treated as a supporting actor in the whole issues. And this chemist call was also not serious. Over a period of time, the doctors start practicing more into private hospital or the polyclinics where more number of doctors, and normally these polyclinics or the hospitals, they have single retailers. So practically this situation led to a thing that for every 10 doctor we'll end up meeting maybe 1 or 2 or 3 retailers, not even a 6 retailer or 5 retailers, which used to be in the past, and that too not very seriously. And secondly, these retailers will not give the correct feedback because they are in the hospital setup. They're not supposed to also. But this is only one side of the story where we keep on going on to ignore retailers for last so many years, or you can say precisely more so in last 20-30 years, where focus has been more and more doctors. There is another side of the story. In another side of the story, the chemist over a period of time start playing very important role or very big role in the pharma business, which we were ignoring. So to understand the chemist role which he is playing currently, I would like to mention another 7 points to you, and then you look at how these points, how the chemist roles are playing now. Point number 1. When you look at pharma, qualitative data and quantitative data, that is data of AICD and IQVIA on one hand, or CMARC or SMSRC in other hand. So when you compare between two, this prescription data which we get from SMSRC or CMARC, they normally shows a 1 to 2% kind of growth. And the sales data which we get from AICD or IQVIA, they normally shows a growth of 10 to 12%. So practically, the difference between the growth is, you can say, either around 10% or maybe to the tune of 5 to 10 times more growth. So sale is happening, but prescriptions are not growing with that speed. Now this can be because of old prescription, this can be because of self-medication, this can be because of patients are not going to doctor, they are directly buying, whatever it is. But that difference is there, and we cannot ignore that fact. Coming to point number 2. In 2017, the study was done on the self-medication in India. It was done by OPPI, and that time in study it comes that 52% Indians go for the self-medication. When I say 52% Indian goes for self-medication, it does not mean that this 52% does not go to doctors. It means that the 52% of Indian, they buy medicine on their own for certain medical conditions, and some other medical conditions they go to doctors also. In the COVID time, this percentage has gone up 80-85%, which also little other extreme. But let us look at, say, down the line 6 months, 1 year from now, where COVID also may not be that strong. Even then, there will be around 75% we can consider as self-medication in India, which means 70 to 80% of people, they do self-medication also, and they go to the doctors also for certain different conditions. In last few months, I have done a study where we check from different number of retailers, okay, when people come for self-medication to them, who decide the brand, which brand to be given, and we found that it is around 75 to 80% in the case of self-medication, it is the chemist or pharmacist which influence directly, indirectly which brand to be given. So look at that, where almost 70-80% people are going for self-medication, and within them 70 to 80% which brand to take is influenced by the retailers. Look at the retailer role now. Point number 3. In India, last several years, the Gen Aushadhi stores are working. As per the last report, they have turnover around 650 crores, and number of Gen Aushadhi stores are more than 10,000 operating currently. These stores are basically opened not to cater the prescription but to substitute the prescription. So whatever doctor write, they will give in their own way what is economical or what is available with that, which means retailer is playing much bigger role. Coming to point number 4, government has made it mandatory that every retailer has to keep certain rack where only generic store will be there. So now, as per the government order, every retailer is bound to sell some or other generic, which means he has to give the options. And the generic, what retailer is going to sell, he will sell what suits him or what give the better trade margins or what patient asks for. But certainly, doctor does not have role here, but chemist certainly has a role. Coming to point number 5. Lot of generic stores are opening, and these generic store, they sell the brands of their own pharmacies or their own brand. For example, you see the Dawa India. Dawa India is one generic store, generic company, which even give the advertisement in television also, where Kapil Dev is their brand ambassador. And what the product they sell is belong to Dawa India only. So they are not there to cater the doctor prescription, but to sell their own medicines. And they are fully authorized, you can say, to substitute anything. That again speak about the role of the retailer. Point number 6. As I mentioned earlier, more and more doctors are practicing in the hospitals or in the pharmacies, in the polyclinics. And there, the retailer, there are 1 or 2 retailers are inside, and these retailers play the role which brand to be given, or sometime doctor has to prescribe what these pharmacies have. Broadly, when we look at say comparison between who has more say in the sale inside the bigger hospitals or in the hospital pharmacy, it is either administration of the hospital or the owner of the hospital or the hospital pharmacy. They certainly has bigger role than the doctors, because either doctor has to follow what is available or what is more profitable, or he can substitute also. And last point, there is a companies, or you can say ethical selling companies. By and large, all these companies, they have got a generic divisions also. These generic division, they are selling on the basis of trade margins. So they also substitute the prescription, and there also it is retailer which decide which brand to be given or which company product to be given. And in addition to that, there are certain mid-sized company in India, that's again a good number. These mid-sized company overall business model is the semi-generic. They keep a brand name of certain product, but they sell it in a more generic way. So when you add up all these 7 points, you will see how the role of retailers or the pharmacist is there, which brand to sell or which company to sell. Overall, one thing we can say in the conclusion point of view, the retailer is emerging as a very, very big stakeholder. And if you look at the total percentage of the medicines or percentage of brand, who is deciding more, whether doctors or retailer? Probably retailer or pharmacist deciding more than the doctors currently, maybe to the tune of 50%, 60%, can be even more also. So we need to think about now every company, there has to be a retail strategy, and we can't take retailer for the granted. We cannot ignore the retailers, and we simply cannot think about now that prescription is the key or doctor is the key, because now the probably much bigger customer is there, which we have been ignoring for the years. And before going off, I'll just give the one clue that when we think about retailer, we think about trade margin, we think about discount, or we think about some rate cut and all that. But retailer does not need only this. Retailer strategy or retailers, they need much more than that. When we make the retail strategy, by giving certain discount or giving some trade margin will not be sufficient to that. We need to think something more than that. We'll talk about that in some other videos, but for today, this is for food for thought for all of you. Think about it and think about the retail strategy.